Godzilla vs. Biollante is a big step in the right direction, I think. It needed to be taken after the previous film, Return of Godzilla, which I felt was a pretty generic, kind of just vanilla take on the character of Godzilla. Godzilla vs. Biollante takes the series, back to its sort of former, I don't want to say roots, because if we're saying roots, that would mean what the last movie was about, which was Godzilla being the bad guy and blowing shit up. Now, this movie brings back the theme of Godzilla fighting another giant monster, but most of the time in the Showa series, the plot was all just kind of the same every time. It was always like a space alien trying to control a big evil monster that Godzilla had to fight by teaming up with another good monster or something like that. But in this movie, it actually takes its time and develops an actual plot and gives the new monster its own sort of origin story, its own narrative that it's built around. And it's actually kind of an interesting one, because Biollante was a gigantic plant monster that was created by combining a rose with cells gathered up from Godzilla himself. Like, basically, at the end of the last movie, Godzilla was defeated by having him shoved into a volcano. Well, they took some bits of Godzilla that were found on said volcano and mixed those bits in with some experimental whatever, plants and whatnot. And the scientist who decided to do this, he did it because he was already trying to use these plants to recreate his dead daughter. And the plant starts dying, so for whatever reason he just gets the crazy idea like, oh, if I use the Godzilla goo, that'll help. That'll definitely save my daughter. But instead it creates a gigantic half Godzilla, half plant thing. And of course the real Godzilla is super pissed about this thing's very existence and tries to beat it up. And Biollante itself has a really awesome design. It's got all these big old teeth in it. It's like all practical effects, but it's got like a million moving parts. It's got all these vines with like mouths at the ends of them. And it even moves. It's not like rooted to the ground, but you see it slowly like sliding across the ground, and it looks awesome. Godzilla himself has been redesigned a little bit to look more menacing. In the previous movie, he kind of had the old like big round white golf ball goofy looking eyes. But this time around they made his eyes a lot darker and gave him a bit more of an angry stare, so he looks more like a creature and less like a googly-eyed mask. And this movie also introduces a recurring character named Miki, who has telepathic powers, and she sort of builds up a psychic link with Godzilla in this movie, and uses telepathy to communicate with people a couple times, and she will be a recurring character in future movies. I know because I already watched like 5 of them, and I'm doing this review like 5 days after watching the movie. Anyway, but yeah, there's a bit near the beginning of the film that I thought was really cool. I also forgot to mention, I'm really happy that this Heisei series of films is bringing back the original theme music from the first Godzilla, because I always thought it was weird how they used that awesome theme music in the first movie and never brought it back. Well, these movies brought it back, and they use it really well with the timing and everything. Like, there's a scene early on in this movie where I think it's Miki is talking to like a school teacher or something, and basically they have this school for like specialized like kids who are born with telekinetic powers, and all the kids are like, you see them drawing on pieces of paper, and Miki and this teacher lady are talking, and they're like, yeah, all the children told me like they had the same dream last night. That's very foreboding, I don't know. And then they go into the classroom, and she says, alright children, are you done drawing? They all say, yeah, and she's like, show us what you drew. And they all hold up their pictures, and they're all really colorful, unique illustrations of Godzilla burning the city of Tokyo and blowing it up with his fire breath. And as soon as they hold up all the pictures, it just starts playing that theme, dun 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 dun. And it's like, yep, Godzilla's not dead. He's still in the volcano, he's still alive and kicking, and he bursts out and he looks amazing. He looks better than ever. And it's great. Biollante also has the power to just transmute itself into a million little spores, and it does that after their first fight in the film. It just turns itself into a bunch of spores and floats away, and then gathers itself back together at some point later in the film. Other than that, I don't really have a whole lot to... Well, okay, there was something I forgot to mention about the previous movie. There was like this, I think the military or whatever had designed this big, aircraft thing. It was like a big flying ship that was designed to combat Godzilla, and it looked kind of goofy. It was like the goofiest thing in Return of Godzilla, which I guess it kind of needed a little bit of goofiness in there to maintain the tone, because clearly they're not, like, they weren't trying to make these movies more dead serious. They were trying to just, reel back in the cheese factor a bit to make them more digestible, I guess, because the Showa series had some wacky ass dumb garbage in it, but so far these Heisei films have not. And Godzilla vs. Biollante is a very good example of having the perfect balance between the seriousness and the cheese. The cheese is still there, it's just delivered in moderation, as all things should be. So, yeah, I think this movie's really well balanced, and it's a good ass time. I would definitely recommend it. It's not one people talk about a whole lot because Biollante is not a super popular monster. It only shows up in this film as far as I know, and yeah, I mean, it's not one of the classics, obviously, but that's kind of what I like about it, is that it is kind of new and kind of weird and kind of out there, and it leads to some really cool, never before seen imagery, like pretty unique stuff. And I like it a whole lot for those reasons. And yeah, that's basically it. Next movie I'm real excited about. See you in the next one.